There are forces around us that we can feel, hear, and see, but to some, there is no explanation as to why. This podcast discusses everything that we, as a society, are taught to doubt. We interview our science and data-driven co-host to see if we can shift his perspective and get him to embrace the alchemist within. Have you ever wondered if you can communicate with the dead? Join us for our first special guest where we will discuss all things beyond the veil. Hello and welcome back to The Alchemist and the Academic. I am your host, Rebecca Finale, your alchemist, and I am here with our co-host, Kurt Braddock, our academic.
As always.
So we are very excited for this episode because we will have our first special guest.
We did have my wife on an episode earlier.
Yes.
She's very special.
Very, very special.
But she was not a subject matter expert in what we were talking about. We will have her back.
Yes. But
we have a very important, very cool subject matter expert this time.
Yes. And we didn't have to schedule Brooke to come here.
Yeah, if I remember right, she just kind of came downstairs.
Yeah.
She was like, what are you guys doing? And then Sully came down too.
Yeah, it was perfect.
She was a fantastic guest. She was lovely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So today, our topic, which we have been very excited about, is mediumship. And today we will have on a very dear friend of mine, Beth O'Brien, and she is going to be giving Kurt his first ever mediumship session.
Yeah, so I got my first tarot reading, which you're very upset that I remain skeptical. I thought about it, you know what? I know this came from our last episode where I said that's my biggest doubt. I believe it more than last time, so. Mm-hmm. Well, I was thinking about the math. Pulling that card twice.
Very low percentage.
It's like, how many cards? I shouldn't put you on the spot because you always forget how
78.
many cards. It's 78. So it's whatever 78 times 78 is that's the chances of pulling that card twice. The chances of pulling any card twice is 1 in 78, which is still pretty small.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, I'll give it to you. In any event, I'm psyched about this one.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to have questions for Beth, but I got a lot of dead people in my life, so I want to see what comes through.
Yeah, we've been waiting a long time for this, so we're just so happy that it is happening, and we can expose Kurt to yet another fun thing in the witchy realm.
And let's take a second, though, because we always do this. What do we mean by mediumship? I know it seems obvious, but there might be some people who don't know what we're talking about.
So, mediumship is someone who is basically a conduit and can communicate with people who have passed on in your spirit team, so people beyond the veil. But I don't want to say too much. I want our expert to answer those questions.
I have questions for her as well, so she'll be able to explain it to us. So, before we bring Beth in, we have to do our regular cheer. Depending on how this goes, I might need to refill my wine glass. I have red wine today, and you are drinking?
I am drinking Tito's with blackberry ginger ale.
So it's only because I drank all of the club soda in my house.
And you have no lemons.
And we have no lemons, so...
But this will do.
Okay, so...
All right,
cheers.
To mediumship.
You know, my mother-in-law asked me, what's that sound after you cheers? She's like, what is that thing? I hear the glasses clink, but I have no idea what that next noise is.
When we put the glass on the table?
Where we tap the table,
yeah.
Yeah. She's like, you know how we tap it down kind of hard, making like regular cheer. She's like, I don't know what that is.
I was always taught that when I bartended.
Yeah, you're supposed to.
Yeah.
We're getting a little off topic already, but I like doing a drink and then tap on the table on the bar. Yeah. But I digress.
All right, so we are here with Beth O'Brien, our mediumship guest today. Hello, Beth.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
So, I actually know Beth because she works at the same building that I do in Medford, New Jersey. She rents space. She also does a lot of really cool events at a lot of spaces. So, let's talk about you for a second. How long have you been doing mediumship? Or do you want me to ask questions or you?
You go first. I have my own questions. I'm ready to go. Like, my questions are going to be much more about mediumship, but
Okay.
I want people to know Beth because Beth is also lovely, and I want people to know who she is.
Yes, so we want you to know how to contact Beth.
Yes.
So, Beth, tell us about your practice, what you offer, how long you've been doing it.
Okay. Well, I'm at where Becca is. I'm at the Center of Life and Balance on Main Street in Medford. But I'm also at Mystical Blossoms, and that's in Marlton. So I'm there twice a month and at the center every Wednesday and Friday.
And how often are you there, Becca?
I'm there Tuesday through Friday.
Oh, okay. So you're seeing her 2 days a week.
Yeah.
And you guys met and became pals
Yes.
through that. Okay.
Yeah, and we've done quite a few events together.
Yes.
Has Beth ever done mediumship for you?
Yes.
Okay.
I think like 3 times.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Can I ask how that went?
Well, she's sitting here, so.
Well, I don't know. Okay, so that kind of betrays my first question. Is, am I allowed to ask?
No, you are.
Like, is this a secret?
No, Beth is wonderful. I get a lot out of my readings with her. So whenever because I know quite a few mediums, and when I was thinking of who I wanted to bring on the podcast, she was the only one that I really wanted to offer that to.
And she shouted you out right away, too. Right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're very kind, Becca.
Yes. So how long have you been a medium for?
Well, so professionally, full-time since 2016.
Okay.
But I've seen spirit a long time since I was a young child, like age 4 or 5. So I've been, I guess, all my life, I would say. But when I was younger, and I'm much older than you two, and it wasn't as accepted back then, and it still isn't with some people. But I mean, there was no social media back then. There was none of that kind of stuff. So we didn't know a lot about it. So I didn't have anybody explain it to me. So I was probably doing it way longer than I thought, but I just wasn't allowed to express myself.
Right.
Were you aware there was like a community out there?
No,
Not at all?
not till I was like my 20s and 30s.
Oh, man. That must have been lonely.
I'm old now, 57. I'm old, but anyway.
Oh.
But it was lonely. It
Yeah.
was lonely. And then my parents didn't understand it. So they would say, oh, you're too sensitive. Go to your room. Here's a pill,
Right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, well, how about explain it to me because I'm frightened. But, and my dad was Baptist. My mom was Catholic. And, back then you didn't really talk about dead people, the Catholic, the community. So
Still don't.
they still don't. Yeah. But when I was really young, I saw my great-great-grandfather laying on the couch, and I explained what he looked like, and my mom said, there's no way he died before you were born. I'm like, why is he lying there? Again, go to your room, here's a pill.
Yeah.
Stop being so sensitive. I got that my whole life. Why are you crying? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And then through the years, we moved to Tabernacle when I was 11, Tabernacle, New Jersey, and there's a lot of Native American burial grounds out there.
Mm-hmm.
Hence all the high schools are named after,
Mm-hmm.
Tribes and things like that. I saw a little Native American Indian girl at the edge of my bed, and I screamed, and my dad come around and he's like, there's no one in here. I'm like, yes there is. And my mom, she won't admit it, I mean, she passed away recently, but she saw a full headdress Indian chief at the edge of her bed.
Right before she died, or
no, when we first moved to Tabernacle, 1977.
Okay, so that suggests you think that you got the gift from your mother, if she could see too?
She's sensitive, but not really. She's intuitive and sensitive, but not really communicating with the spirit world or the
Okay.
people who have crossed on.
Okay.
But she is intuitive, so some of it, I'm sure that's where I got it from.
Okay.
And so yeah, and then should I continue?
Yeah, absolutely. No, like I said, you can't. We want all this.
Yes.
I'm telling you, this is fantastic.
So, well, thank you. So then, like, I was one of those kids growing up, never had friends. I was always like weird. Nothing made sense to me, like normal stuff. I hated school. I love teaching the spiritual stuff, but I just could not. I was in all level 4 classes in high school. But back then they just passed you instead of figuring out, I'm so, like the energy in the school and the classes, like I would be down the nurse every day, sick to my stomach. I went for a whole year when I was young. I couldn't go to school because my belly hurt. I had a stomach ache because of the I guess the energy in the classroom. Went to the doctor. There's nothing wrong with you, but I could not. I was sick and I could not. But there wasn't anything medically wrong with me. Right. But my stomach hurt like every single day. And again, now you could explain it to your child why you're feeling
Right.
like that, but back then they didn't know. So I grew up with a lot of anxiety and fear and, you know, stuff like that because nothing made sense.
Yeah. Or they knew and they didn't care. They're just like, okay, whatever, here's a pill.
Yeah. Don't talk about it. Yeah. And that's what I got all the time, you know. So then through my life, I was afraid of it. I, you know, suppressed it until I found a mentor, you know, when all this stuff started coming out about the paranormal shows and stuff like that. And I went to her and she's like, you're intuitive. You have these gifts. She was at a place called the Ghost Hunter Store in Mount Holly.
So wait, that wasn't until much later. The ghost,
my 30s.
I was gonna say the ghost stuff, like the ghost TV shows, didn't really start coming out until like I was even late 90s, really, like late 90s, and then really took off. The ghost hunting shows took off in like the 2000s.
Yeah. But like internet stuff and stuff like that, I don't know. It was starting getting more popular, and then like more metaphysical shops were popping up. So then I took myself down there, and I was like, I was just like, I actually had a picture of my grandmother's house. She lived in Maple Shade, and something told me she was waving goodbye. She died in 2017. I took a picture of the front of the house, and you could see two like figures in the front, and she lived by herself in the inside of the window. That's why I went to the Ghost Hunter, the store, so to see if like, what is this, you know? And then she goes, oh no, yeah, that's spirits. And then that's how I got involved. She taught psychic development classes to bring out my self-esteem and confidence because I didn't have any of that growing up.
Right.
Wonder why?
Yeah, yeah, and that's how that all began. And then I started taking psychic development classes, and then I one thing after the other, and became a Reiki master. I'm a certified shaman and a life death doula. I'm also a certified hypnotist through past life regressions, inner child healing. Ordained minister. I've done weddings and funerals and christenings, and paranormal investigator. I think that's it. Do historic homes to help raise money in private homes. People say my house is haunted, so I'll go out and help them. I do house cleansings and house blessings, which is a free service.
My wife swears that every house we've ever lived in is haunted. She wants everything to be haunted. She swears, yeah.
You think this one is?
So that'll be my skepticism coming through. I'm not sold on ghosts and spirits and things, and we often my wife and I often get, not arguments, but we often talk about it. She's like, you believe in aliens but not ghosts? I'm like, yeah, that's about right. But she loves the paranormal, and she literally our first apartment together, she's like, this place is haunted. I'm like, okay. And then we got another house, like, this place is really haunted. I'm like, all right. And now we're in this one, she thinks it's really, really haunted.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it's got something going on, but nothing bad.
We had a house I grew up in. I actually do think there were some things going on there, because there were times where I heard things in that house that there's no way I could have heard it. Things that just scared the living hell out of me, because I was maybe 11 or 12, and like things would turn on and off. I'd hear voices through remember we used to have like stand-up stereos in the living room. We had one of those, and sound came through that once for no reason. So I mean, I've had experiences, but I often just explain them away. And I assume, Becca, you're full bore. Spirits exist, ghosts exist.
Oh yes.
Yeah, okay.
And aliens.
Well, she's got one in her office.
Oh yeah.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, she's got one in her office.
Is it a good one?
Yes,
yeah,
very good one.
She's a very good one.
I always sensed like I could feel an energy in like this back corner of my office, and then I treated Beth one time, and she was like, like the nurse is at that corner of your room, and I was like, no way.
That's awesome.
Because I could feel her.
Right, and then you have other clients, right? That's mentioned.
Yes,
she's clients mentioned it to her.
That's cool.
My patients will be like, oh, I thought you came in already, like to take the needles out. It's like, no, they're like, I thought you brushed up against my arm.
Yeah.
It's like, that wasn't me. And I know, like, whenever I take naps in there by myself, I feel like someone pulling at my feet. Yeah. And it's like she's just taking away the anxiety that I have. And they delivered babies in that room, and I do a lot of fertility work.
Yeah.
So I think she likes what I do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a hospital, 1800s.
That's cool. See, I don't know. I guess I don't believe it, but I kind of do.
Yeah.
Like,
You do. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
right?
I mean, I have what do we call it? A healthy doubt, a healthy skepticism about it, about most of the things we talk about on this. Can I ask one of my questions?
Sure.
So you talked about kind of what made you realize that you might have this gift to be able to commune with spirits. What's it feel like when you do? Or what did it feel like before you knew what it was? And now that you recognize what it is, what does it feel like now? Because I imagine when it first happens, it's probably fucking terrifying.
Well, when it first happened, I was young, so it was more like a scary feeling. I didn't know what it was.
That's what I mean, yeah.
No, I was frightened. I hid. Like, I ran and hid in the closet.
Yeah.
I'm like, and then you feel even worse when my dad comes in and say, there's nobody here. And I said, yes, there is. And I even saw and heard somebody brush up against my bedroom door and run and go out. And then we're like, oh, it must have been the dog, this and that. But no, the dog was downstairs in this thing, and there's nobody in the house. So it's frightening because, they're like, just go to sleep. It's nothing. Right. Well, what the fuck? Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, you be me, right? Yeah, no, it's not nothing. So it was more frightening when I was little.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it must have been if you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Or if you do know what it is, but you can't. As a kid, you can't process that.
Yeah. Well, and as a kid too, and I always thought somebody was in my room, but hide under the covers. I could, what was it? Just like, how, like, have you ever walked into a room or walked somewhere? It just feels like energy. Someone is in there with you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a type of feeling I would get as a kid. It'd be scary. I just knew something was in the room, but then there wasn't.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times when you first begin doing this stuff, or you first realize that you can communicate. They're more like on top of you, so to speak, because they're just like, hello, I'm here. Aren't you looking at me? Because you're like, because you're sensitive and intuitive, you're like a beaker in the light.
Mm-hmm.
And then when spirits find out that you can feel them and see them and sense them, then they're like, a lot of times they're just like, well, I'm here, and then they may seem aggressive, but they're just trying to get your attention.
They just want to be noticed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello. Yeah. And that's why people do get their shirt tugged. They're like, hello, I'm here. Or they'll feel like, my grandfather used to touch the top of my head, like it would feel like this. Mm-hmm. And somebody verified that, and I didn't even say anything. So it just feels like, or you'll feel just anything, like the hair stick up.
I felt one time I did feel, I forget what it was. It was at my first girlfriend's house. I was like 18. And I felt a hand go up my back, and I thought it was her. And I turned around, there was nobody there. I was like, what the fuck was that? This is some bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I explained it away. It could have been windy. My shirt might have been
see, here's the thing. Like, how you're saying that in the paranormal world, the first thing you do is debunk everything. And if you can't debunk it, then it's paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
So the paranormal world, doing paranormal investigation, is a little different because you rule out everything else it could be. And if you can't rule it out, then it has to be paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
See, the scientific way, like, you can prove the scientific part, but you can't prove that it's the paranormal stuff.
So the scientific side would say you can't prove it because you don't have enough data yet. Mm-hmm. You just need to collect more data, and you can prove it.
Yeah.
So and we talked about this too without getting into epistemology, but number one, I'm trying to open a bottle of wine, so I apologize if you hear
if you're sure.
there have been several times on this podcast where all of a sudden you
hear
it.
In there for that.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to do it quietly.
Oh.
And the last episode, you hear because I'm filling up my glass. Anyway, I'm also what you call logical empiricist. There you go. Yeah. So in my training as an academic, we learn different philosophy. You're going to hear this too. A lot of philosophies of how we come to know things. Mm-hmm. And one of those traditions is called logical empiricism, where essentially it boils down to the fact that you can explain any phenomenon if you have enough data. Mm-hmm. If you have enough data to do it. Mm-hmm. So the answer, if you can't answer a question as to why something happened, it's because you haven't collected enough data yet. You're not asking the right questions about how to get that data. So that's where my, quote, skepticism comes from. Mm-hmm. But I also... Let's get this over with.
It's only a little left.
But I also, I don't know what I believe in, like religiously or anything, but I believe there's something beyond just the tangible. So, mm-hmm. I mean, I do think, and I don't think those perspectives are necessarily in opposition. I think if we could collect data on the paranormal, then maybe we could test those hypotheses. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So I have an open mind when it comes to this stuff.
Well, I also wanted to preface your reading to the listeners that you have never had any contact with Beth.
No.
I arranged
First
all
day,
of this.
yeah, first day meeting of Kurt.
So
Yeah.
there's no way of knowing anything beforehand. So
No. And I have... How many dead people do I have? I have lots of dead people.
yeah, you have a lot.
I have...
Oh, that's happens.
No, don't say him.
Don't say it.
Don't say him.
Don't say, okay.
Yeah, that's what happens. We have that.
All right. We got time for maybe one more question before we get into the meat of the mediumship, you
Yes.
think? Well, it's your turn. What other questions would you have? I mean, I know you know Beth, but do you want to jump in with any questions?
I think a good question for the listeners, because I had it myself, but you and I have had this discussion before. So I had the same experience as a kid where I could always feel that there was something in my room or something around me. And I got so scared that I just like completely shut it down. And now as an adult, as I'm getting older, I really want to open that. So do you have advice for anyone who would maybe want to, would want to start exploring that?
I would, the way I tell everybody that comes to me and says, oh, how did you get started? How can I open up? I feel or sense this. Can I open up my gifts? I would take psychic development classes, do it the right way. You know, not everybody, does it that way, but it's really important to just have just the way you learn anything, like take the right steps and learn how to do it. Psychic protection. There's find out what clair you are, find out what your gifts are, and what your strengths are in that doing divination, and then take it from there and do it the right way. There's ways that people just open themselves up. That's a whole nother show, right? Open themselves up to like everything, because I have assisted in exorcisms. They're real, right?
Oh, okay. I got more questions.
So yeah, I just assisted. I held space because I didn't speak the Latin. I do not know how to do that. I just held space because you, again, that I keep saying, like, you have to be well-rounded. Okay, like most people, they work with the love and light when they do this, but sometimes there is negativity, and that's just how it is. And a lot of times people, as a child, like when we're doing, when someone says, "Can you come to my house?" or people think they have attachment to them. That's another whole nother show too. But it's something that they did as a child. Ouija boards aren't bad. It's a kid board game. It's how you open it and close it and how you use it, right? So some people say when they're doing it and they don't know how to open and close it, putting psychic protection up, they'll call in anybody, whoever's here, come and make a sound, make a noise, and you don't know who you're calling in from down the street, or someone did something bad, that kind of spirit, and then that's when you get that negative energy. 90% of the time when we go in private homes, there's literally 50 questions I ask, because 99% of the time you can create your own negative energy and your own negative entity by the life you're living. I need to know any kind of medications. Are you alcoholic? Are you drug addicts? Is there fighting in the house?
Am I gonna get those questions?
but because I need to know what I'm walking into, and
I just got so much more excited.
How to treat it, and know how to deal with it, because I'm not going to bless a house without knowing what I'm walking into, because you don't want to bless negativity in the house, because then it stays there.
Yeah.
Then you, instead of getting rid of it, so I need to know what I'm walking into. That's why some people lie, and then you go and you find stuff in their house, because you have to look through their cabinets and make sure they're not lying to me, because they'll lie,
Yeah.
It's so interesting how intentional it keeps coming up in these conversations, because again, not to pitch my other podcast, but the film we just watched, Becca and I just watched a film called A Dark Song, which the filmmakers actually really did their homework on spells, because like it's drawn from, what was the I forget, the Albalin or something like that.
Yes.
But one of the major plot points in the movie is that the woman has hired somebody who knows the ritual or knows the rite, and she tells him that what she wants is to talk to her dead son. But you find out halfway through that she lied to him, that she actually wants vengeance against her son's killers. And it changes the entire trajectory of the movie. So, I mean, they really did their homework on intention and everything. Yeah, so it's cool how...
Yeah, intention's very, very important.
Yeah.
How you on your intention. Like people, like I always say, you can use fire to keep warm with or to cook with, but you can also use fire to burn a house down with. So it's all in your intention and how you, like they say with magic, with it's how you use the magic,
Right.
So that brings me to kind of my last question before we do this, which I'm actually kind of nervous now. This is fun.
Don't be
Okay, so we talked a bit about, like, you can invite negative energy in, you can invite negative spirits in. What is the scariest experience you've had as a medium?
Oh, scariest? Well, so it was probably, when you do paranormal investigations, you're not alone. They really haven't scared me.
Mm-hmm.
But at the Center of Life, they're going to get mad if I say the Center of Life and Balance.
No, I've already talked about how it's haunted.
It's not really scary. I was just in there with the I got done with the client.
Is the Center of Life
remember this.
Is the Center of Life and Balance where you guys work?
That's the building
I'm
working
Okay,
in.
building.
Yeah, and it's 3 floors of holistic practitioners. So, and there's all kinds of different practitioners, holistic practitioners. But this was a couple years ago. I got done doing Reiki on a client and doing a reading, and he was sitting on the Reiki table, and all of a sudden the blanket goes like a string all the way up and flops back down, and the person I got chills talking about it, he saw it too. So
creepy.
he goes like this, he found out, his friend was a jokester who passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes, can you make him do it again? I said, I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm like, when they move things,
Yeah.
that's a little. And then another fascinating time, I was upstairs with another client. We just got done, and all of a sudden you hear all these clanging dishes and stuff, right? Like dishes moving around, stuff like that. And I'm on the 3rd floor.
Okay.
So we open the door, and you can smell Thanksgiving dinner cooking. Okay,
It's just a mean trick, because then I'd be like, I want some stuffing.
and then there used to be they used to have different food vendors in there before that, when it was the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, all the tables had their chairs pushed all the way up against it, right? That's how, when they left, all the chairs were pushed up against the table. Also, while we're smelling and hearing this clanging like they were cooking Thanksgiving dinner, you hear all the chairs get pulled out, and you can run downstairs, and every chair was away from the table.
Beetlejuice style.
And there was 5 tables. So it's been at the center.
Yeah.
We did do a paranormal investigation at the center. It was about 5-6 years ago, and we got 43 EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, and half of them were intelligent.
Uh-huh.
Because there's I can't say this word, residual spirits.
Yeah. Gotcha, okay.
Like massive 2 shits. I can't say massive 2 shits.
Massive 2
I can't
shits?
say 2 massive 2 shits.
There's no way I'm going to be able to say Massachusetts without thinking massive 2 shits. Yeah.
And then there's intelligent. Intelligent response is when you ask a question with a record. Can you tell me your name?
Yeah.
And you hear clairaudient, the name, or it's on the recorder, or they make the equipment go off.
Yeah.
That's intelligent. Yes and no, they answer that way.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool. But
it reminds me, and I guess I hadn't thought of this for a long time, but a friend of mine, my best friend, Dustin, who I've mentioned on the podcast, he has a cousin who I was also close with growing up. I actually just saw him recently. Doug Beach. His family lived in Chemung, another very like a very Native American old-timey town.
Indian Mills.
Yeah. So they lived in a house kind of in the woods, not really. It's kind of a place where you always find snakes. Like, I not like that place.
Pine Barrens has a lot of snakes.
But that house used to creep me out as a kid. I never knew why. And I found out later, I talked to their mom, and I heard all these stories about, they would say that they would find blankets folded at the end of beds that weren't there. They'd find toilets would flush or not flush depending on what was going on. That house was messed up. And they always said that the energy there was aggressive. Like, it was actually kind of angry. And his mom was very much a believer in what was going on. So that house did creep me out when I was younger.
Yeah, that eerie feeling, like when you go in someplace and you're just like, ugh, this is scary. Yeah, I don't like that.
It gave me the feeling like, do you remember being really, really small? And I think we talked about this too, Becca. Being very, very small and being left alone in a room, and it feels dangerous, even though it's not.
Yeah.
Because your parents are somewhere else. That's what it felt like in that house all the time.
Yeah.
I will say at the center, it's very active, but I've never had a negative feeling.
Yeah, there's nothing bad or nothing evil there.
Right. But I did one time, so I no longer smoke cigarettes while I'm at work.
Yay!
That's a start.
Yay,
Sorry.
Becca.
One of my vices. Yeah, can't quit. But while I was still smoking, like if I had like a long break, I remember I was just having such a shit day, and I had my cigarette and lighter in my hand, and one of my intrusive thoughts came in, as they do, and I was like, what if I just lit this cigarette right now in this house? Because I was the only one there. Like, intrusive thought. I'm not going to act on that. And the cigarette got hit out of my hand. And I was like, I'm so sorry, house. I didn't mean it.
The house was like, no smoking.
Yeah. Not with all this wood.
It was crazy. I was like, oh my God.
The more we talk about these stories, the more I do think I believe in this stuff. Yeah. Okay, before we get started, though, let's take a little bitty break.
Yes.
And after the jump, we will see what's what. I have no idea what to expect, which is very exciting. So after the jump, Beth, you ready?
Ready as I'll ever be, I reckon.
Same.
I reckon that right.
All right.
So the more, may I say, like the more open, see that's the thing, the more open you are when your walls are and your shields are down.
Well, over the course of the evening.
Yeah, you got more looser. No, not but you know.
What are you trying to say?
What in your
Or it could be the
now?
wine, I don't know. But you know why? Because then, so here, and then what happens also, Spirit gives you what you need. I say I work for Spirit. So I can't make Spirit come through. They have free will. Okay? But most of the time they do. It's like, I have to put on my website for entertainment purposes on. Because I have to say that. Because like you have free will. Nobody can make you do anything. You don't do, right?
Right.
And a lot of times if you need guidance or something's going on in your life where you need something that's going on, like a lot of times they will just let you have that. Because it's about helping you and healing you, helping yourself first.
Yeah.
That's how like Spirit works.
Okay. All right, well, I'm excited to see what happens. I'm actually really excited now, and as the night's going on, I felt myself open up more and more.
Yeah, because there are people that, Becca knows this. Yeah. I mean, you sit down, and I'll be like, you start talking, and they'll be like, I'll be like, I'm not the one for you. I don't charge people. If you sit down and your energy sucks.
Screw that
later,
noise.
dude. Like,
charge them.
But why? I know, right?
I tell Beth that all the time. Like, still, it's your time. But I've done the same thing where I'm like, I will have download after download. Like, you were mentioning the clairs earlier. So there's clairvoyant where you can see spirit, clairaudient, you can hear it. Cognizant is the inner knowing.
Yeah. There's clair taste and clair. I wouldn't like that.
No. What about clairtactile? Is that a thing?
There's clairsentient,
clairsentient.
where you feel.
That's
So I usually get that. Clairsentient's my number one. So like when I tell you I was one of my signs for a heart attack is I immediately get like severe chest pain. I'm like, okay, who died of a heart related condition? And when I tell you, it was just coming through.
Yeah, and that's how.
And this woman was just like not receptive at all. And I was like, I'm not even going to charge you for this. She was like, yeah, I didn't really get anything. And I was like, well, I don't want this to turn you away from these readings. I was like, they can be very helpful, but you do have to be very open.
This is where I tell the spiritual, stop being hippy dippy. Time is money. Tell them like, yo, all right, I came out here, I could have gotten paid for this, so pay up.
Or you tell them, and sometimes they, where was I going with that? God dang it. Where I was going with that.
I like the idea.
They don't want to hear what you want to have to tell them because you're doing this for your highest good. You don't do it for like, you better get to the ER because you know what? For one thing, we're not doctors, we're not therapists, and who the hell, we have no right to say that. If something like that, like if they'll be like, I'll hear the word blood pressure, like Spirit gives you signs that you understand. Mm-hmm. Like if somebody took their own life, they show me a black handgun.
Oh.
So they're signed in symbols. If it's an overdose, they show me pills. If it's a car accident, they show me a tree with a car smashed into it. Just they so you can understand. So it's like they give you bits and pieces that it's like I don't have the whole puzzle. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like you have to say, yes, that relates, or no, but because then it can just be like, if they say, no, then you're like, well, later. And that's far few in between. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't happen a lot, but twice at an event, I'm like, because it's like, and I'm just like, I can't do events. I hate them.
Too much going on?
Yeah.
I love the idea that somebody's like closed off and there's like 7 spirits just waiting to come through, and they're like, this dick, he won't open up, like they're just chilling, and like, I got something to tell you, but he won't open up. I would say he, because it must be a dude. It's always a dude.
Dude's always the dick, or they'll say, I'll be like, does this make any sense? Maybe. No, fuck it, is it yes or no?
Oh, Beth, I love it.
Yes or no. Don't say maybe, because you know what? I'm out.
Yeah.
Because you can't. Because then you know what? Spirit turns you off. They'll be like...
I'll tell you what. If you ask me if something makes sense, I will think about it hard before I figure it out one way or the other. I promise. I'm like, I'm ready for this. I'm actually kind of open.
So I just sit for a minute, kind of like, just like, you know. Like,
okay, so wait. We want to get that after the jump.
After the little break.
We do a little break, and then after the jump, we will do, it's called a reading. A reading?
It's, a reading. Yeah, reading.
Yeah. Specifically a mediumship reading.
Okay, well, after the jump, we will have our mediumship reading.
But she also does other stuff.
Combination. Yeah. Combination,
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, this is...
And just so the listener knows, Becca and I talked about this, like, I'm going to be locked in because I want to do this right. Mm-hmm. So, Becca, when something needs to be narrated, you will narrate what's going on, but otherwise I'll be locked in with Beth. And
yeah, if I can, like... help
add context,
I absolutely will, but for the most part it's just going to be a dialogue between you two, and I don't really want to put my energy into it.
Okay, so I apologize for anybody who listens to this. For Becca, ASMR. We
will be doing ASMR. We should do ASMR.
I think videos. We should.
ASMR.
I think we should do like an ASMR bonus video.
We do. It's like it gives you spine tingling sensations, like really calming videos.
You know what we should do? We should find like a book to read and then read like Lord of the Rings to people.
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah. Okay, after the jump. Let's get some spirits. Hello, dear listener. This is your friendly academic Kurt. I'm editing this week's episode, and as you'll note, we should be getting into the part of the episode where my reading from Beth O'Brien, our lovely medium, would take place. However, as I was editing just today, on the day that we're launching this episode of the podcast, I found that there are a lot of, let's say, irregularities in the recording. There's a lot of background noise, a lot of static, and every time that Beth tried to speak, it became garbled and it sounded like there was noise going over her voice. This followed an instance where I couldn't use my regular microphone because it stopped working as we began to try to do the medium reading. What does this all mean? Number one, it means that something funky was going on during the medium reading. And number two, it means we're going to have to do it again, because the medium reading is actually incomprehensible. I tried to clean it up and run it through filters, and it just wasn't working. So we're going to have to try to do the medium reading again for me and release it probably in 2 weeks. So I apologize if if we have whetted your appetite for the medium reading, but we hope it's kind of piqued your interest. It's weird that this happened. I've been using this microphone that I'm using now and seems to be working just fine now. I've been using this microphone now for a couple of years for podcasting and professional reasons, and the only time it's ever gone on the fritz was in trying to do this medium reading. So we're going to try again, maybe in a different place, maybe with a different mic, I'm not sure, but something strange is going on that absolutely best with the signal in the reading. So my apologies from myself and from Becca, but we will have the reading for you again in 2 weeks, as next week we are going to have an episode on herbology. So please stay tuned. Something's weird is happening with this medium reading, but we're going to get it done. And hopefully, if there are spirits that object to the reading, hopefully they allow it to happen as well. So thank you for listening. Tune in next week. We'll have herbology, and then we'll come back the following week with what hopefully promises to be an intriguing second part of the mediumship episode.